Kunj Bansal as well is with us. Kunj, hi, good morning. Good to have you in our studios. Which way are you tilted when it comes to banks? And is it safest to stick by with the HDFC banks of the world?
Yeah, it depends what perspective one takes. Of course, it's safer to stick with HDFCs and IndusInds, which we have been seeing continuing to report good performance financially, and as a result getting rewarded in valuation and share price returns. Public sector banks, of course, last 3-4 years we have consistently been seeing what has been happening, and I have been personally negative on this whole sector. The only thing now at this point of time one has to see is that if some of these NCLT/IBC related cases do turn into positive, that can straight away add to the kitty of some of the public sector banks. But having said that, it's really difficult to take a call in terms of long-term investments in these banks.
Well, we've been talking about that large deal in Policybazaar. Now, Policybazaar is an investment company of Info Edge, and Info Edge is just getting all the investments right. First, they hit a home run with Zomato. Now, with Policybazaar, where SoftBank and some of the other funds are looking at increasing their stake. Info Edge also would be investing along with SoftBank, and the valuations of Policybazaar now really could go to $1 billion. Kunj, here's one company which has got the script right. With Zomato, with Policybazaar, and with some other investments also, whatever niche investments they've done, Kunj, I think they've got it right. But are you a bit surprised that the markets are not rewarding the Info Edge stock?
I'm sorry, market is not rewarding?
The Info Edge stock?
I think it's a question of phase of the market, that whether the market is looking at actual profits and as a result cash flows coming in, or is market happy with the top lines, the eyeballs, the footfalls, as we have used to call earlier and we do call now also, is happier with them. So also if we want to analyze, I don't have the ready numbers, but one has to look at how many companies got started as new ventures in last 4-5 years, and of which in percentage terms probably very few have been successful, and that is where the market's doubt remains. So market actually, and in fact in any case we have seen that especially in the current financial year, while the large cap indices have recovered, in fact they are close to the peak, the mid and small cap index has been coming down, and to that extent it is very difficult to immediately put a belief into these.
Well, a very interesting news space in the Economic Times this morning, and it seems that Coca-Cola is now planning to boost some muscle. It's planning to get into health drinks and not just aerated sodas, and it seems that it's interested in buying Horlicks. Now, this is going to be a tough fight because it's already competing with the Nestle's and Danone's, which already seem to be in fray for getting a piece of Horlicks. But this is a very, very interesting diversification.
Yeah, you know what is Horlicks? Essentially, it's a malt-based health/energy drink. Yeah. Coke's not been present in this category. Coke's been present either in aerated water, carbonated drinks, juice, water. So they are essentially trying to really indicate to the world that we would use our distribution, which is one of our edge, and we would move away from this so-called label of being a sugar producing company or a sugar beverage company. Now, Glaxo globally has gone on record and said that, look, we need money for our future M&A activity, and we are looking at exiting our consumer business. Now, from a Glaxo consumer standpoint, which is the listed company, Horlicks and Boost, they pretty much make up for about 75-80% of the total revenue. So if the business gets out, will minority shareholders get dividend? Will Glaxo Consumer remain listed? Will they get piece of the global M&A activity which is going on? I think that is something which is going to keep the stock warm. But Coke moving into the malt drink business, globally they have not done that. But locally, if they are trying to do that, that is just telling you that Coke now really wants to reinvent themselves, because Coke, Pepsi, some of these aerated companies, they've come under criticism and they've been labeled as the sinners of the world because you are selling sugar beverage company. Now, globally also Coke is trying to defend their image. I think locally they are trying to defend themselves. So this is not a done deal. I'm sure Nestle and HUL also understand the importance of Horlicks. Horlicks is a very powerful and a strong brand. As a child, I remember that couple they've had. Boost is the secret of my energy. So we've grown up.
Boost is different, Horlicks
Boost
is
and Horlicks are same. I mean, they're from the same company. Horlicks and Boost,
but they're different brands.
They're different brands, but they both are promoted by Glaxo Consumer. So it's a malt business which we are in. So me and Kunj Bansal, we come from Ajmer, and
did you have Boost?
So I'm not sure. I used to have Boost. I used to have Boost in Ajmer, and Kunj Bansal was just behind my school. So my mother used to give me this drink and say that, okay, go and beat St. Paul. That is the school where Kunj used to study.
Yeah, so let's not get into who beat whom, whether St. Paul's beat St. Anselm's.
We should have this conversation offline, but yeah, it's past memory.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I think
I don't remember
business.
Kunj, your school winning ever actually.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying let's not get into who beat
the secret.
Whether St. Paul's beat St. Anselm's or St. Anselm's beat St. Paul's. You won't remember. You won't remember bad things. Good things is what people remember.
I thought it's the other way around, but anyway. Yeah.
Somehow I don't remember still.
But what we do remember is that the power drink that we all used to have at that time, right? So the thing is, that this is a legacy business. This is a legacy brand. What does this do in terms of valuations for the FMCG space? Whoever wins it, it's clearly going to, as I see it, have a snowballing effect, because the ones who lose out will then be scrambling for the next health drink, or getting a share of that market, because you don't want to lose out on that market share on that brand.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to ask you is that, do you think that this would really influence valuations in the FMCG business?
See, there are 2-3 perspectives to this whole development that has been happening. One is, sometimes a brand gets started by a company, gets built, is made to reach a certain stage, and then the company realizes that for whatever XYZ reasons, they are not able to take it further, and as a result, they want to divest it. Maybe it's a change of their business plans also. And in the meantime, some other company comes which buys it and is able to make a success of it. In a lot of cases, they are also not able to make a success of it. So only time will tell whether this change, as and when it happens, becomes successful for the buyer or not. And obviously the seller has the reasons that they have had change of mind and change of business plans. I would also like to extend this whole saga to think from the shareholders' point of view. And as Nikunj was saying, that how the shareholders, especially the minority shareholders, will be rewarded. A case in point in the recent history in Indian example has been the buyout of Lloyd brand by Havells. Now, one has to think whether the Lloyd shareholder, especially the minority shareholders, got a fair deal or not. So that is something that will have to be monitored in this case as well, that whichever way the deal happen, what happens to the rewarding to the minority shareholders.
No, but I understand this is a brand under JSK's wing, but my natural thought process then is that, what is in it for HUL? I can understand again Nestle getting into the market and being very aggressive with this buyout, or at least being in the race. But for HUL, how much can they push the needle when it comes to getting really aggressive with the purchase like this?
HUL has the largest distribution today in the country, and of course the brand and the trust in the brand. So I'm sure HUL has been, let's keep in mind, has been trying to enter into the foods business with some success, with part success, part not success, and to that extent this can be a very big win for them.
Yeah, certainly, but don't know how much more valuations than the FMCG would command, because of this. Anyways, they have been trading at very high PE multiples, and people call for correction, but those calls have been unanswered.
Kunj, just want to discuss the market construct as well for you, because up until now, like Nikunj was earlier chatting, what you had in hand was globally things were looking strong. It was only our markets shaky, and that too in a very concentrated and within the mid and the small caps. Do you sense that trade war fears could escalate? That could bring about a domino effect and we could fall even further?
Looks like. Ever optimist that all of us are, especially when it comes to Indians in cricket and in market. Both these things we are optimists. So we were trying to downplay the negative effect of the trade wars. But we have seen now India also becoming a participant of that after US slapped the import duty. India has also done that. And already China and US are at the war. So I think initially it was being underestimated that probably it won't escalate, nothing will happen, or even if it gets done, things won't deteriorate. But now I think one has to take it seriously. It could have an impact. The only thing when it comes to Indian market, and again I am trying not to be, as I myself said, optimist towards India, is that there will be very few sectors which will be affected by reduced exports to the US. So, to that extent, India is still an isolated economy when it comes to its global trade, when it comes to its exports and imports, and there will be very few sectors. So, let us say steel export is one which does get which will get affected.
But that also, I guess, just very minuscule, right? 2 to 3 odd percent or something. Yeah.
Gems and jewelry export could be the other one, although the listed opportunities there are very less.
But Kunj, this may have a cascading effect because as you rightly pointed out that we underestimated the impact of this globally, and when you know, not Indian economists, but if you listen to economists globally, a lot of people have started throwing probability of slowdown and recessions because of all these factors. Don't you think that because of that, if at all that scenario plays out, that would have a far major impact on country like ours, which has decent amount of export?
It would certainly have, because we still are dependent on the global trade. It's a question of relative terms, that our global trade or our export imports as a percent of GDP is still in that range of 20 to 30% compared to 70-80% which it is for a lot of other countries. So, to that extent we will be affected lesser, but yes, wherever in fact extending it to the IT, we could see all these things extending to the visas, work visas being given to the IT sector. So, it would have an impact. Overall global trade in any case was not growing. We hardly had started to come out of the recession in the Europe, in the whole Eurozone, and if all these things happen, probably it could escalate.
I just want to look at the auto index, and let's look at last 4 years and May 2014 when the new government got elected. If you bought into Tata Motors and if you bought into a Maruti, and let's say if you bought into any other random auto stock, and I'll pick up Ashok Leyland, how stark the underperformance in Tata Motors has been. It was a great value play. It had a promise of JLR. It had a promise which gave you a clear, clean play on CV recovery, but Tata Motors has just been at the bottom of the barrel, both in terms of stock performance and also in terms of wealth creation. There you go. I mean, if you had put money in Tata Motors on 26th of May, when the current government got elected, you actually have lost money. Nifty has gone from 6,500 to current levels of 10,500. So, it has actually underperformed the Nifty also very, very massively. Kunj, I am a believer in cycles, and I firmly believe that in markets everything follows a cycle. Is the uptick cycle in Maruti getting over, and is the downtick cycle in Tata Motors getting over? I've argued this a year ago. I've got it wrong. I thought Maruti should have peaked out at 7,500 and Tata Motors should have bottomed out at 350. But I've been wrong. With that admission, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so before coming to the stock price movement, expected movement going forward, it's obvious that we would analyze the performance of these companies. Now, if we look at the performance of Maruti, even in the first two months, the April and May of the current financial numbers that have been declared, if I remember correctly, they have gained 4% market share in the passenger vehicle segment, which is the only segment that they operate in. So, that's the kind of performance that Maruti has been reporting. Now, no fault of Tata Motors that it's in the multiple businesses within the automobile. It's not a domestic India focused passenger vehicle business. It is a business which is in passenger vehicles, whose main business is commercial vehicles, and then it has JLR, which has become a very big contributor. Now, again, if we look at last 3-4 years history, obviously Maruti has had a one-way consistent growth, improvement in margins, cash flows obviously as a result going up, and they have been very timely in increasing their capacity expansions, and all of that has benefited them and benefited the shareholders in terms of shareholder price return. At the same time, so many moving parts having been there in the Tata Motors, partly of course one would like to say that the management also should have seen all these things coming and should have taken timely proactive steps to make sure that the business keeps growing, but they could not. Also the fact that, as I said, so many moving parts, it will always be difficult to have a business model which will keep giving you the consistent growth. Now, extending the same logic, the same thing will apply now also. Domestic passenger vehicle business for them is very small. It seems to have started doing well of late with launch of 1 or 2 new models. So, that is something that will pick up. Commercial vehicle sales of course have been picking up very well in India, but what is getting affected is the JLR. And it's where that one will have to continue to take a call, which it still looks difficult. And to that extent, maybe it is difficult to expect contrarian returns in Tata Motors, especially in the short term 6 months kind of future. maybe going that one will have to see how things shape up. Maruti, yes, the valuation gap which was there and which is what resulted in phenomenal gains in last 3 years may not be there now. So, but at the same time I feel it will be a story of consistent returns.
Okay.
Kunj, what is your sense? Would TCS continue to be the jewel in the crown when it comes to Tata Group companies, or do you think there could be a dark horse which could emerge as a winner?
So, money speaks, and as far as that is concerned, I think TCS has been a very big cash flow generator for the whole group and will continue to be. At this point of time, if we look at the other bigger businesses of the Tata Group, those are Tata Motors, about which we were just discussing. There's Tata Steel, which is more of a commodity, and commodity cycle has been doing well for last 2 years. Is it coming close to the peak? Very difficult to predict. Then there's Tata Global, which has multiple businesses under it, which none of which are doing exceedingly well. There's Tata Chemical, whose fortunes again have improved in last 1.5 years or so. So, but just like Tata Motors, when we were discussing, Tata Chemicals has a multiple moving parts, it has multiple businesses across different geographies, and to that extent it gets affected by the economic phase of those economies as well as the currency movements. So, at this point of time it looks very difficult to be able to visualize that the cash flows from any of the other group companies would exceed the cash flows from the Tata from TCS. And to that extent, I think even though you may not want that company to continue to go up, but that is the fact that remains.
Kunj, Tata Sons will get about 12,000 crore if my numbers are right because of this buyback. That 12,000 crore cannot be sitting in the bank. They would put it back either to increase stake or reduce debt. So where do you think this money would be deployed? Because the first round of TCS buyback was effectively used to buy back all the cross holdings. So whether it's Tata Chemicals or Tata Global Beverages, what Chandra did, he said, look, I'm not going to have a scattered shareholding. I would simply consolidate everything under one brand. So Tata Chemicals gained because they sold their stake, I think, in Tata Global. Tata Global gained because they sold their holding in Tata Power. Which Tata group of company could see an immediate benefit both in terms of realignment and capital allocation?
So, instead of continuing to focus on their existing businesses, I would like to think it afresh. And when I think that, I think it's also the time for Tata Sons to look at either starting or buying stakes in some of the new generation businesses. So all those startups, internets, online businesses, Tata Sons presence per se is not there. So let's keep in mind that is where probably, and it depends, as we are seeing that in London they are having the meeting and Mr. Chandra will present the vision. So I don't know if one of this is in their mind. So that is something that should happen.
Okay.
That is one. Two, I think probably, I don't know how things shape up. Part of the money they may require to settle the telecom disputes depending on how things shape up there again.
True.
Three, again, they may want to divest or buy out some other businesses. So Tata Global, as I was saying, is a business which has multiple businesses under it. If they divest, of course, they will get additional cash flow. But let's say Starbucks JV is something which might need cash. And then next point and the last point is the retail business. It depends how much focus that they have on that. That is something that will need cash.